What's your next maybe
Yeah, I think I love that.
Looks like that.
Harry's my double checker. Yeah, one person's watching on YouTube. Perfect. Hello.
Hello, one person.
Hi. Are we live?
Yeah, we're live on Instagram as well.
All right. Good evening to everyone joining us here in person. It's so amazing to see so many people in this on this campus again, and also very warm welcome to everyone at home joining us, or from wherever you are. I'm Celine. I'm the community and events manager at LeWagon, and it is my great pleasure tonight to be welcoming Sonia, the author of Unprepared, Entrepreneur, as well as our panel guest speakers, Carsten, Helena, David, and Deborah. They will be shortly introducing themselves as well before talking about their entrepreneurial journeys. A quick overlook for tonight's timeline. So we will be starting with a panel discussion that is led by Sonia, and then we will be talking a little bit about Sonia's book before ending this event with a live Q&A. But before we move on to the introduction of each person, I would like to quickly introduce LeWagon for those of you who don't know us already. We are an international coding boot camp. We have originally been founded in France in 2013. We are currently working from 46 cities and counting, and have taught over 12,000 alumni in web development and data science. LeWagon equips our students with the skills they need to change their lives, kickstart their tech career, or launch their own startups. And almost 200 startups have been launched after our bootcamps by our alumni, and some of them have gone on to raise over 300 million euros. And we're especially proud to say that 30% of the LeWagon founders are female, a fairly high number when comparing to the US market, which says that only 4% of tech startups were launched by female founders. This is it for me now, so with no further ado, I'd like to hand over to Sonia, who will be introducing herself and then start off the panel.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off, I want to say a big thank you to LeWagon for organising this and delivering and being here. And to everyone who has attended in less than a week's notice. So it's great to have people back in person. Just on that note, in terms of the housekeeping, there are bathrooms at the back over there, and please always be mindful that not everybody wants to hug or cuddle or shake hands. So just, we're still in a pandemic, and I think it's really important that we share that. But in regards to myself, so of course this is my book launch, which is very exciting to say that out loud. I guess in terms of an introduction for those who I haven't met, my name is Sonia Barlow. I started working in 2015. I worked in numerous companies in the tech industry. And in 2018, I started Like-Minded Females as a brunch club because I felt a bit lonely, a bit depressed, and a bit of a loner, fundamentally. So I thought, what's better than bringing people for brunch? Brunch didn't quite work out, but at the start of 2020, I decided that I wanted to be my own boss. And so launched a business, and I was very grateful that last year I was offered a book deal by a COVID page to talk about the entrepreneurial journey. And since then have been a LinkedIn changemaker, have been nominated for numerous awards, have just been here, and I'm very grateful actually just to be here. And also founded and run Like-Minded Females, and we've upskilled over 10,000 people in 3 years. We have LeWagon as one of our mentoring partners, and also Harvey Nash. So David is here representing Harvey Nash. And we have some mentors and mentees in the room. So very excited, absolutely. Mentors and mentees, please stand. Wave, stand, yay! Woo! Thank you for being here. And fundamentally, our whole life, our whole premise is about being inclusive and making sure that everyone feels like they belong, and most importantly, giving everyone the tools, resources, and frameworks to live their life of success. So this panel today will be that and much more. I'll allow the panelists to introduce themselves, starting from Carsten, and then we will kick off with some questions. I have a couple of questions already prepared, just as per my book title. It's good to be prepared where you can. And then we will open up a live Q&A so that you all can get involved. So thank you. The social handles today are at Sonia Barlow UK, at LMF Network, and at LeWagon London. So please do take pictures and tag and share and just have a great time.
Thank you. Hey everybody, so I'm Carsten. I did LeWagon about 3 years ago, and since then I have been working on a startup called Stottles with 2 co-founders, and there's 12 of us now. Basically what we do is connect businesses to the government. So we have a SaaS platform that scrapes a ton of information that the government and other places publish, and then we make that available and easy to understand and digest so that businesses know which people and which places in the government to go in order to get connected and win work. So that's me.
Thank you.
Yeah, this one will reach.
Hello everyone, I'm Helena. I'm currently I'm a founder of an incubator here in London called Entrepreneurship. I'm working on using AI for translation for podcasts. Currently, I'm saying currently because at an incubator there are a lot of pivots. So let's see what it's going to be next week. And there's a lot of learning journeys there. Previously, I worked as a product manager at a tech company, and I had a startup in recruiting before, and did LeWagon before that. And yeah, super excited to be here tonight and share those journeys with all of you.
Thank you.
So I'm David. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm the intrapreneur. Yeah. I also my job title is the Group Technology Evangelist for the Harvey Ash Group, which is a really wanky job title, which I came up with. But primarily my job is basically helping people understand what the Harvey Ash Group does, because we don't traditionally haven't done a very good job of it. So it's through podcasts, and we work in groups and software as well, and writing and moderating. And so I'm normally asking questions, actually moderating events and media videos, all those bits and pieces. So I'm here because normally I book Sonia to be on my channels rather than my own.
Hi everyone, I'm Deborah, founder and CEO of an organization called YSYS, which stands for Your Startup Your Story. And we support diverse talent kickstart their careers in tech and launch their own startups. I'm also an angel investor with Atomico, which is one of the largest Series A investors out there, as well as a government board advisor for the DCMS, both their telecom supply department as well as their digital council. And yeah, that's about it. What else do I do on top of that? Yeah, that's about it. Oh, and I'm also in Sonia's book, which is really exciting. And I'm a big fan of Sonia.
So Deborah, as the mic's in your hands, my first question goes to you. From my understanding, and of course you're chapter 10 of the book, you started your business from a WhatsApp group. So I'd love for you to share how you converted social media into a £500,000 business, please. For the rest of us who are looking at you thinking, we want to do that too. And most importantly, it started from a community initiative. So how do you think that community has helped you to progress in your business journey today?
Well, first of all, buy the book, because everything's in there. But wow, yeah, I mean, coming up to 5 years, will be 5 next year, February. Literally 20 people that I met within the startup ecosystem. So prior to that, I used to work at Google startups, Huckletree, various kind of startup entrepreneurship hubs and programs. And as I was in these spaces, I always found that there wasn't individuals that looked like me or that I could relate to. But every now and then, maybe every 2 meetups, I would meet one person that kind of looked like me. And I thought, hey, being the introvert that I was at the time, now I'm like kind of an extrovert, I have to be for work. I was like, I don't really want to meet in person, but I want to connect. So would you mind if like we follow each other on Twitter? And then from there, I was like, well, actually, can we foster a deeper relationship? Would you mind being up for joining this WhatsApp group? And 20 people decided that, yeah, they would join this random girls WhatsApp group and talk about startups and pushing yourself and growing within resilience and making connections. And I think what's amazing about that is that those 20 people, despite or wherever they were within their journey, they started to pay it forward, right? So as one person got a job at another company, they're like, oh, how can I like openly do the doors of opportunity for my friend or my colleague? As someone found out maybe there's an investor in the same industry, how can we make an intro? And I think how all of us kind of just paid it forward, and I think that's kind of the magic of it all. And we had individuals come out of our community that became like the investor directors of Backstage Capital, which was one of the first kind of VC funds here in the UK investing in black and ethnic minorities. We had individuals come in and raise millions, sell their companies to Indeed. And these are just, their journeys just changed. And I think what I'm trying to say is that where we got to now, having, yes, generated that much in revenue, but more importantly, actually provided 17,000 diverse individuals with opportunities and access into tech, is because of the people that make up that community. And oftentimes I would say like, yes, we're a small team of 5, incredible, like our team's absolutely incredible, but it's definitely those 17,000 individuals that have helped us get to where we are today.
Thank you so much. And please remember that you can ask questions at the end. And of course, there will be open networking for you to ask any of our panelists some questions. So just based on the mic and where it can go at this point. David, you mentioned you're an entrepreneur. To be honest, most people don't really know what that means. So please, can you explain? And also, how did you start your initial podcast so long ago when one, podcasting wasn't a thing, and 2, your business wasn't really keen on you starting a podcast within your business?
I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was until you told me.
Wow.
I view it as that. What's an entrepreneur? I was a technology recruiter. I came out of university, didn't really know what I was going to do. That is a recruitment like a lot of people do. And where was it? 6 years ago, so kind of 7-8 years into my job. I was doing well, had a team, had lots of clients, but didn't necessarily enjoy the sales aspect of it or the repetitive nature of it. And I'm a bit of a content geek. When I was at university, I had a radio show, but no one listened to it, that doesn't matter. I wrote the student paper, and I've always loved that kind of aspect of things. And just thought, well, hang on a minute, my job is interviewing people. You go along to events and people don't really say anything that's particularly interesting. Perhaps I could turn around and go, well, look, let's interview you. And at the time, because it was 2015, podcasting was not a thing. YouTube was. I probably would have gone for a YouTube channel, but had no money, no time, no expertise. So that wasn't going to happen. So I just said to some clients, look, can I come chat to you, stick a phone in the middle of the table, record it, stick it online, see what happens. And they were terrible. That didn't matter. And I just kind of went with, look, let's try and talk to these technology professionals who have got their head down in delivery mode. They don't get much of an opportunity to talk to the rest of their community. And let's kind of try and get some environment where they share a little bit more. And it snowballed from there to the point where today it's 443 episodes old. It's about 12 to 15,000 streams a month. And it's just opened up lots of doors along the way. And I think entrepreneurship to me, the company, they weren't reticent. It wasn't like they didn't want me to do it. They kind of questioned, well, what is this? How does this work with your job? And it's like, well, recruiters are always trying to book meetings with people, but if we create a platform where they want to come and talk to us because we have an audience, they'll book meetings with us. And now, PR pitch me 5 to 10 CTOs, CIOs, CEOs every single day because there's an audience and there's channels, so they want to talk about it. And it was just kind of proving over time, bit by bit on the side of what I was doing, that this was an effective way, or a more effective way of doing my job. But eventually it ate my job, so that the rest of what I was used to do didn't exist anymore. And it just kind of went, all right, yeah, this does work, run with it. And it was kind of from there.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry, I should have probably sat there.
It's okay, we can
Just,
switch if you want.
yeah, I think we should. I'm just moving. over your knees, and I feel very rude. But thank you. Helena, you mentioned that you are doing numerous things, and as per any accelerator, you obviously start and you iterate, you change your approach. But I guess my question to you is, what is your entrepreneurial style and how have you really figured that out? Because there's a lot of people here that might want to start their own businesses, but you normally think that businesses have to be profitable, but there's social businesses and there's social impact businesses and there's businesses where you imitate and you can be an entrepreneur, so you can run a business for a business within a business. How did you figure out what you wanted to do, and what would your tips be for anyone who is also going on that journey?
Yeah, so that's such a great question, first of all. I think there's so many different founders and it's really a diverse thing to do. There's no one size fits all. So that's definitely true. I think for myself, I kind of always knew that I would have a company and that I would be an entrepreneur. So like, I'm from Austria, and when I was a kid growing up, I would like dress up in like the local dress and stand in the town where there was tons of tourists and just stand and like charge for pictures. Basically, me standing in front of a whole car, and I actually made like a really decent amount of money, especially for being that young. So I always kind of saw that, and I was like, hey, I can just use the skills I have, but like in that sense, not even skills like a dress and culture and kind of the fact that Sound of Music exists in that space, and I can make something out of that. So I think that's how it started, more on the kind of side of like realizing that you can hustle and build something yourself. In terms of kind of the style of entrepreneurship, I think what the incubator is really showing me is, so the thing is there, you join alone and you kind of leave with the team in a company. So that means you meet a lot of different co-founders. And I think through that journey, you really get to explore what's important to you, because you're not stuck with one person, but you're talking to so many other people who want to found businesses. So what I'm starting to realize over the kind of past couple of months and weeks is that the impact thing is really big for me myself. So there is definitely kind of businesses where I just feel like it just doesn't align with kind of the values that I have and the impact I want to create in the world. So for example, diversity is a huge one for me, but also just kind of doing the right thing. So in the AI space, there are a lot of applications that are like so exciting, but also kind of your technology and your product could be used to do kind of things in the world that aren't that good. And I realized that that's not going to be the route I go down, even if that might be profitable. And I think that's a decision everyone kind of needs to discover for themselves. But yeah, there's so many different styles and a lot of different ways to be an entrepreneur as well. I think I obviously now chose like the VC route, where you kind of get funding quite quickly and you grow with kind of outside capital. But the whole bootstrapping idea is like so powerful too, and you're just not giving away anything of your company. So there's different things to consider, and yeah, a lot of decisions to make there.
Thank you so much. And Kirsten, so you started a software business. How did you decide you're going to start a software business? And most importantly, how do you validate your customers? Because I think for many of us who want to start businesses or think about building a brand, fundamentally it's like user profile and customer validation that we often don't understand how to get right. And then therefore we use our investment or customers or potential or growth. Maybe actually it's easier to do that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I feel like when people think I'm going to start a software business, like, okay, well, step one is like write software. And I think that can be actually quite dangerous, because at the end of the day, people don't use or buy software because they're like, ooh, software. It's because it solves a problem or it makes them feel good or whatever it might be. So in our case, I mean, and I think generally the advice that you hear is, just imitate the solution, the end problem that you're solving as cheaply, as quickly as you can, and just see how people react. Because, for us, we had this hypothesis of, okay, there's all this information that the government is like pumping out into this sort of like digital cesspool that nobody can figure out what's going on. So maybe if we organize it, make it easy to search, like bring the right things up, like people will find value in that, it'll save them time of day, etc. And so the first thing we did wasn't to go and build some amazing, bells and whistles software. We, went and talked to a company that was looking at selling to the government, and they're like, okay, we're looking for these things, and we just went to these websites and manually downloaded the Excel, like stitched the Excel together and found the right things and just like put it on some slides and said to them like, hey, here's the stuff you should know about. And they paid us and they like signed a contract for us to keep providing that. And so we were like, okay, that's kind of enough for us to go to the next step. So I would say that wherever possible, just like imitate that end goal or that end solution as quickly, as cheaply as possible. You know, some businesses that's harder. You know, if I have a friend who's starting a credit card company and you can't just be like, hey, I'll lend you some money. Like there's regulations associated with it, but you know, even in things like AI, deep tech, you don't need to create a perfect AI solution at first. Be like, hey, if I get my machine to translate this from German to English, will you want it? And they're like, okay, like I'll give it a try. Just go and find a German-speaking friend, get them to translate it, and see what their reaction is. So I think that being creative with those shortcuts is just like super helpful to just understand, is your hunch right or not? Because everybody's right sometimes and wrong sometimes, and the sooner you figure out the better.
Thank you, such a great answer. So I'm going to open up and invite any questions that may be before I ask a question, because I appreciate we do have an audience and it's nice to participate. So does anybody have a question I'd like to ask? No? I have questions prepared, so that's okay. Okay, cool. So we've got a question from LinkedIn, as we're already on LinkedIn, so that's great. And this question is for Deborah. So Deborah, the question to you is, having founded YSYS and giving 17,000 people access and now leading a team of 5, what qualities do you think make a good leader, and how did you learn them? And what would you say to anyone who is listening, watching, or reading about what is that number one kind of skill that you think you've earned and learned as a leader going into your next venture?
Yeah. Next venture as well. I don't know, like I think empathy is really important. One of the things that I always kind of recognize is the fact that I'm not building a company alone, and especially my next venture, I'm not doing it alone either. And I think really allowing space for your employees or your co-founders or contractors or any kind of stakeholders that you work with to bring ideas to the table without necessarily being always so zoomed in to your individual kind of idea or the vision that you have for the organization. And there's kind of 2 leadership styles that exist. We've got like the individual kind of style, we've got the group-centeredship one, and I think I'm probably more of a group-centered person. I think when you allow people to have a platform and feel like they're also leaders, I feel like strong leaders don't need leaders, and then you kind of always leaders, building an organization, and I think opening up space for people to have agency over your organization is really important, and how agency can come about could be through equity. You might give your employees some options. It could be the fact that they're involved in co-designing some of these initiatives with you. It could be that you're kind of paying it forward and just rewarding them for just existing. So that might be the inclusive perks that you build into your organization. I think, so I would say I'm kind of group-centered, and I take a very kind of empathetic approach. And leadership styles are different. What works for you and what works for your team. But just understanding that any kind of traits that you have that you might think is completely unique, or it's like, oh, maybe this is not the way to be a leader. Like, maybe I need to be that girl boss kind of vibes. That's definitely not me. And it's like, but actually, that thing that makes you unique is what you might think is so different. It's actually the thing that's your superpower. So leaning into that is so important. Like I said, I'm a super introverted person, but what that means is that I can form one-to-one relationships extremely, extremely well. And sometimes when I step into the room, it might be that one person I speak to who so happens to be like maybe the head of like, I don't know, Google or something, or might be a young student that's just like working on this cool idea. But for me, that's enough, and that works because that's helping connect to 17,000 people.
Thank you. Anybody else on the panel want to kind of tell us about your leadership style or something that you've found about your leadership style whilst building a business?
I agree on the empathy front. That was like the one word that was in my head when I was thinking about it. So the sort of other piece that I think is super important is just being able to define a kind of exciting but also achievable goal, like a vision that is something that people can rally behind and are excited to achieve, but also isn't wholly unrealistic. And that's definitely a skill that takes work, and I don't know, something that I've learned is that if you do that effectively, you'll be amazed at what your team is able to do and able to kind of, just completely, operate independently, and you just kind of show up and something amazing is there that wasn't before, and you're like, holy crap, you guys are the shit.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? So we had, yes, and then the lady behind you afterwards as well. So we'll just bring questions in.
I just wondered, given that I've worked with you, Sonia, on mentoring, whether any of the entrepreneurs have mentors along the way and how they use them and how effective they thought.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll ask that, but what I'm going to ask you to do is to introduce yourself.
Oh.
Just a little bit. So the other 67 people here, just going to know.
Dr. Maxine Room, CPE.
Thank you. So the question for those who are watching us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram Live is: have you, as entrepreneurs, had mentors? Are you a mentor yourself, and how has that impacted your business journey or your life? I think if we just start this way, because the mic is in your hand, it maybe just easier. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think it's so vital. I think in my early career, it was very much a structured part of where I was working. I was working in consulting, and it's like a formula that you have 4 different mentors that they assign you to, and blah, blah, and this whole machine that just works beautifully. Going out onto the kind of entrepreneurial trail, that obviously all just disappeared. And so it takes conscious effort to build that kind of support network. And, there are people that I meet with on a monthly basis, product leaders, people who have started businesses before, just have to vent and also to kind of like work through different problems. So I would definitely encourage anybody to be intentional about it, because it does take a bit of a hurdle to get over, and B, realize that in almost every case, the mentor is going to be happy that you asked. People like to do that, and it can feel like you're burdening somebody, but I think that's a bit of a myth. And if the person does feel burdened, then I would hope that they just tell you find somebody who's accepted by it.
I totally agree on that part, especially about like people are normally quite happy to help, and that's something that really surprised me when I started reaching out to mentors. At first it feels really awkward, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm really taking up so much time for that person. But what you need to realize is a lot of people really kind of love sharing their experience. Helping others makes them feel good too. So a lot of people are really happy to help. I would say pretty confidently that I would never be where I am without mentors. So I actually made like a huge 180-degree turn into tech, because my background wasn't at all. So at university, I studied urban planning, like super different. And then a few years into that, not even a few years, probably like 1 year into that, I realized, oh my gosh, I want to, build tech products, and I want to be a product manager and all of that, but I had zero experience. So I had such strong mentors, like product managers at Google, especially like who really guided me through that journey, spent hours with me on like my CVs, how to interview, what skills I need to build. And they're still with me until today. And I've built those relationships that are really strong. Now they're advising me with my startup journey. And I think having mentors is so important. I think, especially as an entrepreneur, it can feel like a really crazy roller coaster, and you probably haven't done that before, and every day is a new day, and new learnings, and a lot of fires are burning at the same time. So having someone who has maybe experienced it before, maybe experienced parts of it before, and being able to kind of just tap them and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this, like what have you experienced, and how was that working for you when you build a startup, or when you're building product at XYZ company. That's really, really powerful.
Look, both formal and informal mentors have been incredibly important all the way through my career. Especially in my case, where I started doing something that was perhaps counterintuitive to the way that everyone else in the business had done things before. There wasn't a lot of understanding necessarily from my line manager, who was one of these supported in lots of ways, but pushed back at times against what I was trying to do. So, formal programs to kind of understand company politics, the best way to kind of handle that was quite useful. But the other thing that I've been lucky enough to build up over time is a network. And so when I stepped into this role now as technology evangelist, it's a role that's never existed in the organisation before. And our CEO turned around and went, oh, what's the job? What do you want to do? Here's a blank piece of paper. Tell us what the job is. It's like, okay. How do you measure it? How do you know what success looks like? So at that point, it was turning around to other people in the industry who I've known for a long time and going, what does it look like in your organisation? And trying to take the best parts. And absolutely kind of echo the sentiments of the rest of the panel. You know, people are happy to share their experience, and I think it, you know, it massages people's egos a little bit. They love to share what they've done previously. But there's also, I think, a really important part of it, which is, you know, you take aspects of advice from them and ignore other parts. You know, not everything that they have done previously will fit you. You know, you have to be authentic when you try to build something. You have to be credible. So you take elements of what they've done, you assimilate that, and then you combine it with your own strengths and forge your own path forward on the back of
that. Yes, as well. I've had mentors, and one piece of advice I would probably recommend for people to do is have a mentor for your business and like a mentor for yourself. So create your 18 for your business and the 18 for Deborah or for Sonia. So with my business, when we went from building a community to managing a company, one of the things I did was get some informal advisors. And one of those individuals happened to be Natalie Campbell, who's the co-CEO of Blue Water. And I remember when she said, Deborah, are you ready for this? I was like, yeah. She was just like, hey, how's your relationship now? I was like, I don't know, relationship. So how's your home life? She's like, everything just said perfect, because it's going to be like a crazy journey. And then, you know, I built like an advisory, I think about 7 advisors, like former CEO of Teach First, David Vogel, who runs like, you know, CEO at WeFarm. And then I also got members within our community to also be advisors, because I wanted every commercial decision we made to be driven by the community and make sure that every metric met their needs. And I would say they were my mentors for the business, because they mentored the business and understanding that our business as well had a personality, like that personality was so intersectional because it represented everyone in our community, and I wanted it to be treated and dealt in that way. And then for myself, like, you know, I built my own Power Rangers team, which is Sonia. She's a great mentor. Just being her friend and hanging out with her, you grow so much in your confidence. I've got a coach who helps me make smarter decisions, because I can take things very personal and in a professional work. I'm really careful with that. A personal trainer, my parents, my friends, but fundamentally, like mentors, there's no kind of prescribing. They come in all different ways. But one thing I would recommend is having your 18, and what does that look like to you? Could be so different.
Thank you so much. So I'm very mindful of time, and I want to allow you all to mingle and ask questions. So we're going to have one last question which has come through LinkedIn, which is great. So thank you for everyone watching LinkedIn over there. And then we will do a really quick, after the panel, really quick kind of 10-15-minute Q&A with me, and we'll cut that short as well, because I appreciate people will be sitting on benches and your back probably hurts a little bit. So we won't keep you there for too long. Then we'll have some books on sale and a book signing at the back, and then some food and nibbles and drinks as well. So the final question that's come in, which is a great question. As founders, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and just people of the planet, what's the one thing that you would share with anyone who's unprepared for entrepreneurship but ready to give it a go? So Deborah, as the mic is in your hand, no pressure. Such a deep question, I know, but that's for you to kick off with, and then we'll end here.
It's going to be controversial because of the title of your book.
Please, we love controversy, that's over here.
I'm like, you're unprepared, get prepared. Exactly. Because, yeah, that's just literally it. And I think the reason why I'd say that is, I think as founders, like, definitely I feel like I became an accidental CEO, but I was very kind of excited about being innovative and building something that's going to have so much more sustainability and a long-term impact in the world beyond myself, right? But one of the things that I found was that understanding my community, my mission, how I'm about to go about, like how I want to go about it, gave me so much confidence and resilience, no matter what room I stepped into. So whether I was like sitting in City Hall with Brother Sadiq Khan, telling him why he needs to build more intersectional programs for Black women to show up. Or whether it was like stepping into a room saying why I'm about to invest 20K into this founder, even though I don't probably look like a typical investor. I think being prepared to show up for a community that I was so passionate about allowed me to make this impact and get far. So I think at any moments when you feel like you are unprepared, just know that you have literally the source. You have the magic. And whatever you need to do to get prepared, whether that is speaking to your mentor, joining a program, signing up to LeWagon, buying this book, do what you need to do to get prepared, because you are representing your organization and what you stand for. Anytime I haven't felt unprepared, honestly, I will just be shaking and I don't like that, so yeah.
David?
You know, often in this industry, we can talk about pivoting, we can talk about iterating and fail fast, and all these terms that are very kind of, I suppose, rooted in everything that everyone here does, and they're totally valid, of course. But sometimes I suppose they might feel quite exclusive if you're not someone who's standing on the sidelines, kind of wanting to start an idea and know where to go with it. A few years ago, I got asked to start a podcast series for Blue Microphones about podcasting. And a lot of people, when they want to start an idea like that, they kind of want it to be perfect, and they stress whether or not it's got to be perfectly ready before I share this idea with the world. I was having a chat with David Breer, who's the CEO of 11FS. I said to him, I was like, what would your advice be? Talked a second ago about kind of iterating and pivoting. He boiled it down into something that was really quite simple to get your head around. He said, the first 10 of anything you do will be shit, and that's okay. It was like, that's true. Like, don't wait for things to be perfect. Don't stop because you worry that people won't like what you do. Just put it out there and see what the reaction is. And actually, that's the best way to learn. And for me, that's the one thing that I've always that I've remembered all the way through. There are so many different things that I've tried over the last few years that have just been disasters. But that's okay, because you pick it up and you go again.
Yeah, I think I can definitely resonate with that. So I also think you probably cannot feel fully prepared. I just don't think that happens when trying to start a company, because there's so many unknown, and starting startups is inherently about taking risks. So it will feel a bit uncomfortable. And I guess what you might want to ask yourself is like, is that the route I want for my life? Or like, do I at least want to try it out? On that notion of just like giving it a try, I actually would like recommend, if you're feeling unprepared, but you have this idea and you're like, kind of want to just see if there's something there, to take a weekend and do like a mini hackathon just with yourself. So I've actually done that on kind of my first startup in the HR space, and I had this idea about like helping people prepare for job interviews. I had this feeling that there's a lot of people out there who really struggle to like, feel prepared for that. And I really didn't know if anyone would like this. And I think I did two things, and that really took me 1 or 2 days to set up. Once I started talking to people who are currently interviewing, so I just kind of, put on my Instagram story like, hey guys, DM me if you're currently preparing for a job interview, I have a few questions. And so many people actually got back to me who I could talk to. But the second thing that I did was I built like a really scrappy looking kind of Instagram ad. That was like, I pretended that I have this website. I made it like look kind of okay. Then I built a website with like basically like a landing page builder. So that took like a few hours, right? But not days, not weeks. That took quite a short amount of time. I went on Facebook, I bought ads for like 50 or 100 pounds, and I put it up there, and I just kind of saw like who was like coming to the website, were they standing up, were they not? If they signed up, I got in touch with them. I was like, hey, by the way, actually the product doesn't exist. But a bummer, because the website made it sound like I have this amazing platform. And I was like, I'm really sorry, it actually doesn't exist yet, but I'm building this, and I actually want to kind of hear your thoughts, like why did you sign up? What was interesting about that? What job are you preparing for? And what are your struggles? And through that, I just got chatting to people and realized, yeah, there's actually something here. And I didn't get thousands of people, but enough people to make me believe that this is kind of worth a shot. So yeah, do a mini hackathon would be my advice, to like feel a bit more prepared at least.
Cool. We kind of recently did that actually. We just built a bunch of landing pages for different kind of messaging and just put some money behind it and just see what happens. So even after you kind of have something, you can keep doing you can keep faking it to people. But yeah, I guess the one sort of piece of advice that I have for anybody who's starting is maybe like a bit strange, but know when, like, set yourself some real sort of hurdles or some real sort of breakpoints. And I say that from kind of personal experience because myself and my two co-founders, we were graduating from our masters and we had kind of like jobs lined up, and we had partners and wives who were like, okay, what's happening after this thing? And so if we had this hurdle that we needed to get over, this sort of like minimum set of like traction to just live in London and survive and all that kind of stuff, and it was super effective, I would say, in like focusing us and getting us to say like, okay, what really matters today, because we have 3 months or else we're all back to the grind. And so I would say that if you don't have those kind of like backstops or those kind of those things that are going to keep you honest, it's very easy to convince yourself, oh, this didn't work because this, or this will work or won't work because that. It's very easy for your own brain to trick itself that things are maybe not quite as reality would look because you want it to work so badly. But the more that you can have something that you like wrote down 3 months ago and you look back and you say like, okay, this is what I believed then, and like, holy shit, was I wrong? And here's why, or whatever. I just think it's like super effective to get people to like focus on what really matters when you sit down on that given day. Which I guess maybe I don't want to end it on like a super, it's like not negative, but like maybe like a bit of realism. But so I guess one other thing that I would say is kind of along the lines of the 18, where I can definitely say that if I was going alone, this would have been over years ago. It's a very emotional journey where you feel like the king or queen one day, and then like you're an absolute idiot the next. And having just folks around that are going through the same journey, but sort of on a different oscillation on that given day is super helpful, just to keep your mentality kind of in the right place.
Thank you so much. So please give it up for the panel. I know that you all are wanting to get up, so I promise we'll keep the next bit to 10 minutes. And Celine's going to come and ask me questions, but I think what we might do is open up to the floor. And if you all have any questions, then please feel free to share. But thank you to the panel. And you can actually just stay sitting here because it's so much easier. And then, Celine, if you want to ask a question, or if anybody has questions in the room, feel free to ask, because that we can involve people a little bit more, maybe. So it'll be good. Go for it.
First of all, congratulations for your book.
Thanks.
And my question is all about people. Let's say you have a nice idea, you have a revolutionary idea, you have the money, you have everything. How do you find people who will share your vision? How do you look at someone and say that he is the one or she is the one who can add something to it? How do you gather people?
Such a great question. So for anyone listening, the question, and I'm going to ask you to stand up and introduce yourself as well.
Hello everyone, I'm Gamo. I'm studying web development here, and I happen to stay after the class and just bump into Sonia.
That's what we like.
And our amazing friends, and that's it.
Thank you. Such a great question. So the question was, you have a great idea, you want to launch it, it's revolutionary. How do you find people? If I'm being really honest, when I had my first idea, which was a brunch event, no one showed up. And I guess that is my claim to fame, is for the first 3 brunches, nobody came. And at that point, you have to be your biggest cheerleader, and you have to believe in your vision. At the same time, when I went and presented it, and I can only speak on my behalf, to my friends, even sometimes to my family, they were like, we don't quite know what you're building, and we don't quite know why. And also, why would you want to leave a stable job? Right? My grandparents were like, that's great, but you can still be a lawyer, but you've got salary coming in, so how are we going to do X, Y, or Z? And I guess, out of complete honesty, the first few people you meet might not be the greatest people, but they will be the greatest learning, because you will know the kind of people you want to surround yourself with, the kind of individuals that understand your idea, but also you'll be able to articulate in a way that people will be able to see your value. And I think for me, if I bring it back to one of the reasons why I wrote the book or started my business is I had this great idea but didn't really do any prep work and just assumed that people would buy into it. And you're a little bit naive, but as an entrepreneur, you go in slightly naive too because you are so excited by what you're doing. And then you took it back and you realize, well, people don't know you and they don't know your story and they don't really know what the value add is. There's 7 billion people in the world, why would they believe you, right? So to answer your question, how do you get people involved? Is you start listening to what they're saying and you see if you can solve their problem. You start listening to how they're feeling, how they're thinking, what's wrong with them, and you see if your product can be the best fit. If not, you still help them and then you let them know that this is something you're doing and they will connect you with the right people. And also, I think someone on the panel mentioned it's an emotional journey. Absolutely. You have to look after yourself. One thing that I've learned is sometimes in entrepreneurs, you can be super nice to other people. And not everyone's your friend, but not everyone's your competitor. People are just there, kind of cruising and moving past. You can use them as a focus group, or you can use them for research, but you have to understand that the people that will be supporting you will initially be there, like all the entrepreneurs have mentioned, but also they'll come a couple of years later. So like Deborah, at the end, one of my bestest friends now, we didn't meet until 2 years ago, and that was in crossing, right? So it wasn't until a year ago that we actually had a conversation. David, I met at an event, and I DM'd him a couple of months ago, and he didn't even reply back to me.
That's to do with my admin.
Just wanna make this really clear. I was like, I love your podcast, I'd love to be on it. Completely not. And I sat next to him, he's like, I ran a podcast. And I DM'd you, like, I'm so sorry. And then he was like, you should definitely come on. I was like, I will, just because I think you feel bad. But Celine and I from LeWagon, we met because she obviously got this new role, which was great. And there was a lot of back and forth. And it didn't mean that I knew somebody and we met, but it was you meet, you listen, how can I help you? How can you help us? And then you try and come to like some kind of equal focal point. And that's the way you're going to build business, is by, you're not building a business, you're building a community. And more importantly, and that's why you have people here, you're building a network, right? So if you're here and you've got an idea, go and listen to each other and go and introduce it and go and ask what everybody else has got going on. And even if they aren't the best fit for you, your people are here and they're the ones that you can ask for advice and back and forth. And that's very much how I would go about it. I feel like inviting the panel, but I'm very mindful of people's time. So you can ask them that question when you will go to mingle as well. I think we had another person. We had a couple of people. So Alice, do you wanna go, and then the lady in front can go next. You have to get up, Alice, and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm a co-founder with Rosanna for Line Up Polo in the sports tech industry. My question is, how do you sort of compartmentalize being an entrepreneur and going about your other life? Because I feel like you're just constantly on, and you have to reply to messages all the time, and you have that stereotype of like entrepreneurs working through the night.
I'm the worst person to ask that question, so don't know. But carry on. So how do you compartmentalize?
Yeah, how do you make it like almost like a day job rather than your whole life, it taking over, or do you let it take over your whole life?
I feel like we should just ask my partner at the back, and maybe he can answer that question and be like, what now? I think the reality is that if your business is like, and it's like a baby, and though it's not the same, and I don't mean to refer it, but that's the easiest way that I can explain it, is you have to raise it, you have to nurture it, you have to water it, you have to look after it, and you have to believe in it so much that I don't think anyone in this panel has really been able to divide their kind of entrepreneurship life and their real life. But what you can do is you can schedule time off. So example being on a Friday evening, after 6, I try to not touch my phone until the next day, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. There might be times where I go home to my mom, and so I'm like, right, tonight or tomorrow or for this day, I'm not going to do anything email related. And also, I have a great team and accountability partners that keep me in check. So it's weird, but it'd be like someone will see me on WhatsApp and be like, you said you were going to take this time off, so can you go take it off? And I think the worst is when you have to remember that you have to be good for yourself to be good for your business. So one thing that actually Deborah does really well, which I'll share, is and a trick that I learned from her is every day she has a different mission for the day, if that makes sense. So one day will be like a strategy day, one day will be an admin day, one day will be like a client day, and one day will be like a day off to just focus on you, or do walking meetings. So like on Friday, I had a great walking meeting actually with Joanna, who's sitting behind you, and we had a client meeting the whole day, but we had no laptops. So I think to answer your question, you can't fully take yourself away from the business, but you can definitely manage your schedule and your calendar to ensure that you are doing the things that you enjoy and then bring them back into your business to be creative. But fundamentally, if you're not working on your business, the reality is that somebody else might be working on a similar idea to yourself, so you're not going to be able to switch off. Anyone in the panel want to join in?
I saw this on Instagram, so I'm just gonna say it. Where someone said, if you can't take a break, take a moment. If you can't take a moment, change your routine. And I'm someone that I'm trying to like balance that work kind of life and schedule. But there was a time I couldn't take a break. We had so much going on and we had to respond to a lot of the needs. So I took a moment, and that moment was 2 weeks. And I said, right, I'm gonna now put that into my schedule where every end of the quarter, I'm gonna take 2 weeks off and just focus on me. There's been times where I couldn't take a break, I couldn't take a moment, but I changed my routine, which meant actually I'm gonna start work at 10 a.m. going forward so that I can have a morning to relax, take a walk, hang out. And then actually I also implemented like a 4-day week as well, so I can actually have the Fridays off. So again, thinking about when you can take a break, when you can take a moment, and how you can change your routine are like fundamental, and then just building that into your like working system. And also find like your safe space. Like I'm getting a puppy. So I have an Instagram page where I connect with like other dog owners. And I like but like I go there and it's like nothing about work. Like my friends, none of my hardly any of my friends follow that account. So I'm not reminded about who I am outside of my personal life or as an entrepreneur. I'm just this dog on Instagram. And I just love it. So that again, find your safe space, whatever that might be to you.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great thing is I don't have any personal social accounts. So all of my social accounts are business or personal brand or to do with my business. So I don't have to struggle or kind of worry about, what am I going to post online or what my friends going to see. And you make sure that you make time for your friends where and if you can. So don't forget to do the things that you love in life, whatever that might be, because that's what's going to energize you to keep going. But if you just focus on your business and your business and your business, the problem is that you're going to be nothing but a drained battery, right? And it's that meme that's like, you wouldn't let your phone go dead battery, so why would you let yourself go dead battery or something like that? But it makes so much sense. We put too much charge in our phone versus ourselves. There was the lady here.
Hi everyone, I'm a LeWagon alumni. I just have a question for you all. How important it is for you, the self-awareness, how you come about realize your strengths and weaknesses, and how has it changed throughout your journey of career development?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So for those who are watching, how important is self-awareness and how has that changed your journey? And for me, it's actually been amazing. So this time, about 2 years ago, someone called me noisy. And I've been called a lot of things in my life, but I've never really been called noisy. And I think that really changed me as a pivot moment because the feedback was, you say yes to a lot of things and you're a little bit of everything, but you're not anything enough. So no one understands your brand or what you're trying to do or who you want to become. So I actually took a step back, and there's something that I write in my book, which I call the 3 S's. So I fundamentally focused on all the skills and strengths that I think I have. Then I wrote stories about each of them and the so what. So how have I been able to use that skill and strength, and how has it impacted or what results it's driven? So I very much filtered my skills and strengths down, and then I decided if I could live by, just to make it really simple, like 5 hashtags or 5 principles, what would they be? So mine would be like business entrepreneurship, community, diversity and inclusion, mental health and well-being because I have chronic migraines, and possibly like personal branding, right? So to answer your question, I only say yes to things if they fit about 60% of that bucket or more. And I redirect everything else to like friends or family or community or network. And so you're positioning yourself in a place of expertise. You're allowing yourself to not go outside of what you want to do as an entrepreneur, but also you're building that self-awareness to know exactly where your expertise lie, where your skills lie, and what you're offering into the ecosystem. And when you're managing or building a team, it's great because you can then identify your gaps. Like I'm, for anyone that knows me here, I am really bad at admin and operations. So I know that that's somebody that I need to now get in to support me with that because it's not something I can do. And it's okay to identify what you're weak at. I think what they teach you at school and work is, oh, if you're weak, you should build that muscle. Absolutely not. I don't really agree with that. If you're weak at something, outsource it, right? Or if you're weak at something, go and learn it, but build the strength and build the muscle that already exists. And my muscle happens to be a communicator. I like to speak, right? I like to talk to people. How can I make that happen more and more? And how can I build opportunities at the back of it? And I think self-awareness comes from one, working on yourself and really understanding who you are, and then two, what you want to put out into the ecosystem. Anybody want to jump in?
I can. Now I'm bringing the mic across.
Right. Well deserved.
I think that for me, it's really about just like having conversations and asking questions that might make both people uncomfortable. Like asking your team, if you were a founder, what would you be doing differently? And like hearing what they have to say, and or ask them, I want feedback on something that I can improve on them. Don't put them on the spot, but say like, think about it, and we'll talk about it next week or whatever. So again, it's one of those things where there's that like initial barrier that feels uncomfortable, but everybody feels better after the case. And then the other piece of advice that I would have is talk to other people about how they do things and like how they're in similar situations. So like for me, catching up with other founders at kind of like a similar stage quite regularly. And then you pick up on things, you're like, wow, they're actually really badass at that thing. And I didn't even realize that we were kind of lagging in that dimension. But just hearing how well you're doing that gives me kind of the cue to step it up. So yeah, and I would also echo that leaning into your strengths can be a total superpower.
Yeah, I was going to echo that leaning into strengths is incredibly important. I am shit at admin, as you highlighted, but I never was very good at it. And for me, that journey of forging a role within my organisation that suited me was about what am I good at. I also think, and this might come across as slightly conceited, if you're going to be successful, then a little bit of arrogance isn't necessarily a bad thing. There are definitely times where you kind of go, no, I know that this is the right thing to do. And there might be other people in your organisation or within your community that go, really? It's like, no, this will work. I just need to keep tweaking it until it does. And I think for me, sometimes actually that belief, and maybe arrogance is the wrong word, but a small degree of it, if you look at sports in particular, people who tend to get to the top level of sport tend to be bloody minded, right? I don't think actually that is necessarily a bad thing to accept and go, no, that's part of your makeup and that's not bad.
Thank you.
People don't want to rally behind someone who's like, this might work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you so much for the panel, and I'm so sorry, Selena, just like hijacked the program that we had. But I want to thank you everyone for coming. This is definitely not the end, but it's the end of you sitting down because I can feel the pains in your back, so I'm apologising for that. And we are selling books at the back, so 20% off, plus a book signing for anyone who would like me to sign it, which is, I guess, the most exciting thing. Because I went into Waterstones the other day and I screamed, and I actually screamed. Two people came and were like, what's wrong? I was like, no, that's my book. And I signed it, and that was my first real official signing, so very, very excited about that as well. And then, of course, there'll be drinks and nibbles. But before we end on LinkedIn, I want to say a big thank you to LeWagon. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who attended. I want to say a big thank you to each and every of these shoes as well. Beautiful leather shoes, have to put that in, really important. But more importantly, I want to thank everyone who took this time on a Wednesday evening to show up, to be here. And if there's one thing that I'd love for you all to do is to make sure that you meet someone new today, connect with them, coffee with them, because these are your people, right? And we go back to who's your people, who's your community. You are here because people want and feel and want to build the same or similar things. How can we help each other grow? And we're all on this panel because we've helped each other, and we will continue to do so. So if there's anything we can do for you, you let us know. But hopefully you'll find your kind of buddies, your mentors, your accountability partners here at our event today.
Thanks, Sonia. And just on this note, I think there's a little present coming for you as well.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for such a great event. So I think that's from our side. So thanks so much for supporting this event tonight. It's so great to see so many people. Also thank you for everyone joining at home, and I just wish every future founder in this room, very good luck if you got inspired by tonight's event. Yeah, so as like Sonia said, we are having some drinks and neighbors at the back, so I hope to see you back there. But thanks so much.
Thank you. Not going to have a go with this one. You just end the broadcast. If you all are ever using LinkedIn